Good morning. Welcome back. Whole week away. What are you doing this Sunday? Hope you're all fit and well. Um, been away for a week and it's all gone horribly wrong because for some reason I'm not broadcasting to Instagram this morning. I don't know why that is. It's nothing that I've done, but I'm not. But everybody else in the usual chat area, good morning. Good to be back. Who we got? Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, missed the intro. It's back, especially for you. Gary Muirhead. Gary, stick around if you possibly can, because we've got something especially for you a bit later on. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Ken Hatcher says, good morning and welcome back. It's good to be back. Mostly good to be back. It really was some show, as you'll be hearing a bit later on. Before I get into the show itself, I just want to very quickly touch on the way that the Germans and those from Munich go about their business. Okay. So I hired a car, and the car only had about 600 miles on the clock. So brand spanking new, a Cupra. Never driven one before, but beautiful. But long while since I've driven on the wrong side of the road. So I was being doubly cautious. It was also a brand new car that I really didn't know my way around. So being doubly cautious. Driving through the center of Munich, there were cars, there were bicycles, there were trams, there were pedestrians, and there were electric scooters. No problem. No problem. No congestion, no near misses. Everything just seemed to work. First night we went out on our own, and myself and Fred went out for dinner on our own. We went to a beer hall for the schnitzel and the bratwursts and the things. There was a couple of people on the table beside me smoking a cigarette. Struck me as unusual because I'm a Brit and we don't do that. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. And then get to the show, and there were, and at one point there was the T264, the big Liebherr dump truck. There was probably 80 people stood on it. Not a problem. Went over to the Wacker Neuson display, and there was a guy in a telehandler in a man basket playing a saxophone. No harness, just going around slowly in circles. There was also a guy sat in the bucket of a mini excavator playing a trumpet. No problem. The show itself, I have never seen so many children of varying ages at any exhibition in my entire life. You go to Plant Works and there's 30, 40, 50 children. Here, thousands, literally thousands, and all ages. There were those riding on their father's shoulders or grandfather's shoulders. There were those running around collecting hats and pens and giveaways. Not a single problem. None at all. And I'm sure that this fellow will back me up because he was dealing with the children. Steve, wow, the most amazing week ever. I'm not going to blow smoke up Steve's rear end, but I will tell you that Steve and his sidekick Ed put on one hell of a show. They really did. The audience interaction was beyond compare. They really did a fantastic job. And just going back slightly, one of the things that I watched, I don't think it was Steve, I think it was probably Ed, picked up a baseball cap, not dissimilar to this one, but it had Kinsoffer written on it, reached it out into the audience, and a guy picked up a very small child and held him up, and Ed lowered, with a 10-ton excavator with an attachment, lowered a baseball cap and neatly placed it upon the child's head. Would you get away with that here? No, you wouldn't. But was anyone hurt? No, they were not. It was absolutely brilliant. Dan says, yeah, it's mental. The safety here is killing the shows. Yeah, it is. It is. Bearing in mind, you've got, literally children in prams and pushchairs right up to teenagers. In the UK, we allow those under the age of 16 for a little bit of day on the final day of a show. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Chris Ford is here. Good morning, Chris. Best to you each morning. Thank you very much indeed. Mark Whiting is here. Alex Latham is here. So yes, all in all, I'll be telling you more about all things related to Bauma as we go along. But I have to say that the show that please take this in the way that it's intended. The show that Ed and Steve put on was 100% safe, but I do not believe it would be allowed in the UK. The display that Wacker Neuson put on was 100% safe. it would not be allowed here in the UK. Who's got it wrong? And do you know the funny thing? And I'm just going to go back to the Wacker Neuson one very, very quickly. They had like an umpire band, I guess you'd call them, saxophone, trumpet, tuba, guy sat in a skip of a dumper playing drums. If you ever look at my Instagram today, you'll see a photo of the guy. And rather than the health and safety police, oh no, he needs to get down from that bucket. That will never, that we can't let that. Everybody there just joined in. We had a bit of a dance. We had a bit of a sing along. We had a fine old time. Why do we have such a hang up? I really don't understand it. And Mick Norton is here as well. Morning, Mick. And I realise our friend Mick is a bit of a stickler for all things health and safety, as he's right to be. But it is possible. It is absolutely possible to have fun and not be a complete anorak about health and safety. I'm just saying. Anyway, I've already been rattling on for about 8 minutes. Jim Turner is here, so I now have official permission to actually start. Morning, peeps, he says. Morning, Jim. Good to see you here. And welcome back to the show. Without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro, post our question of the day, and get this show on the road. Just assuming I can remember how all that works, like this. I'm just going to go over to Steve here, who says, was there any incidents? 7 days of handing out caps, placing cups on heads, handing out sweets and beer? No. Drink flowing and everyone is grateful, cheering, signing. Hats and applause. Yeah. Just one other thing that I will throw into the mix here. And I filmed a lot while I was there. You will be seeing this later in the week, probably, or early next week. The show actually opened. If you were an exhibitor, and I had an exhibitor's pass, thanks to Julia at Kinsoffer, rather, you could get in at 7:30. If you were just a member of the public, a visitor, you could get in at 9. And when you got in at 9, you could literally go walk through the door, and you could go buy yourself a beer, and plenty did. No incidents, no issues, no incidents. Why is that? Why is that? And Dan has just said, just seeing the directors of a failed company have started a new company and bought the failed company. How on earth? And they're Essex based. I don't know. Just another example of the UK just being really weird. Really weird. You spend a week outside the UK, and when you come back, it's like even traveling through Munich airport could not have been more seamless, more straightforward, no major issues. Get back, and I have to queue to get into my own country, as if my arrival and the arrival of all those on my plane were somehow a surprise to people. I don't know what it is. Anyway, it is Monday, the 14th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition and the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. Today's show, I'm going to take you for an exclusive look around the Liebherr demonstration area, just up the road from the Bauma exhibition ground. I went there. Fred went there. I know Steve went there as well, but we'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Hyundai embraces hydrogen, but will everyone else? Volvo electrified Bauma 2025, and in our new Breakfast Show at Bauma segment, we'll be touring the stands of both Kubota and Gary, standby, Steelwrist. Plus, in my morning monologue today, scaling the Bauma mountain and collecting memories that will last a lifetime. Now, I do have a mystery machine. I've already done the question of the day. Let's have a look. How does the mystery machine work again? Yes. Look, it works like this. Yes, I would. Excuse me. I have come back from Munich with a bit of a cough, so you'll have to forgive me and a bit of a deep voice. I've been speaking to a lot of people over the past few days. So yes, mystery machine. 1 second. Hopefully that's got it. Mystery machine. See if you can identify this. Quite clearly, it sits on, well, at least one wheel. I can assure you there are three more just like it elsewhere on the machine. Can you give me any clues as to what that might be? Type of machine, but more specifically, I'm looking for a make and a model, if you would be so kind. Something's just dropped in the chat. Let's have a look. Going back to, I'll come back to the mystery machine in just a moment. I questioned how it was that things were. I mean, here's an example. Here's an example. And I'll come back to Steve in just a moment. So there was a 9400 excavator on the Liebherr stand. Absolute monster. I can't actually remember the tonnage. What is it? 700 tons, something like that. An absolute beast. I mean, it's vast. Steve Williamson and Ed Butler said, any chance of actually going up in the cab? And Liebherr said, sure. While you're here, do you fancy taking it for a spin? So both Ed and Steve got behind the controls. Now, I'm assuming the slew was locked on it because all it did was a bit of sort of miming of digging because there were people, lots of people about. But they allowed that to happen. As far as I could tell, there was no flashing of competence cards because it was Germany, and frankly, our competence cards would be sod all there anyway. And it was allowed to happen. Did it happen safely? 100%. And the reason being is this. Steve says they trust experienced operators. I was shocked I was allowed to operate a 400-ton machine with people already out there. 400-ton. Yeah, a 9400. Just trying to remember. No, it was in excavator form rather than face shovel form. 400-ton excavator, and Liebherr said, "Yeah, of course, have a go." Just like that. As it should be. As it should be. I am going to very quickly remind you. I'll do that in a second. Let me have a look at this. Dan says, I heard JCB had a representative there, but no machines. I did see a few JCB people about, but they didn't have a stand. No, that's absolutely right. Dan reckons our mystery machine, which looks like that could be a Wacker Neuson dumper. Jim Turner reckons it could be a Mechalak swivel cab dumper. I can tell you, neither of those is right. In fact, it's not a dumper at all. I'll show you a smidge more. There you are. While you're doing that, I'm going to take that away. I'm going to remind you of our question of the day. I'm still trying to remember how all this works. So, question of the day. Yeah, so that is the question of the day. My question of the day, not surprisingly, Bauma related. And the question is, the Liebherr stand was the biggest at the show, but how many individual machines did it hold? Now, originally, I was going to do this as a two-parter because I was told how big the stand was, how many square. And that's where the problem arose. I was told it was 15,000, but I couldn't remember if it was square feet or square meters. So I've chopped that bit off, and I've just asked today's question of the day, how many machines, individual machines, not attachments, but individual machines were on the stand. Now, bearing in mind, out front, massive dump truck, 400-ton excavator, huge crane, and a massive materials handler as well. Out the back, autonomous machines, wheel loaders, dozers, and everything else. Load of cranes at the far end as well. How many machines were there on the Liebherr stand? That's what we'd like to know. I think we've already had a couple of answers. Jim reckons 77. Close. In actual fact, I'll tell you what, we'll call it off because Chris Hall's already got it. We were told there were over 100 machines on the Liebherr stand. Over 100. And there were. I did actually do a stand walk around. I completely ignored the cranes because I don't know anything about cranes. I ignored the piling equipment and all that kind of thing. But at some point in the next week or two, I will take you for a guided tour around the stand of Liebherr. But yeah, more than 100 machines. The stand itself was on 4 stories, hundreds and hundreds of people working there. They basically built an office block for 6 days. Took a lot longer to build it, but an office block for 6 days. Anywho, we've done that. Quick reminder on the mystery machine that looks like that. Let me show you a bit more. There you are. There's a little bit more. See what you can make of that. Let's start the show. And we've just been talking about Liebherr. I'm going to be back with precisely those people in just a moment. You're going to see this from Gary. I heard it cost Liebherr 70 million to set it up. I heard a similar figure actually. Now that's unconfirmed, but I wouldn't be at all surprised. I wouldn't be at all surprised. By the time you factored in everything, I mean, how much does it cost to get a 400-ton excavator to a show like that? How many bits does it come in? How many vehicle movements? How many people on the stand? Hundreds. They all needed hotel rooms, I would assume. Just an astonishing, absolutely astonishing. Mystery Machine, Dan Cullen, who's only here for about the first half an hour, I think, reckons it could be a Wackernoisen WL25. It is not a WL25. In fact, it is not a Wackernoisen at all. So keep the guesses coming. Now, I did promise you some Liebherr. Obviously, they had to stand, but we arrived on the Sunday, went to the show, had a look around, but then the following morning they took us to their demonstration area where we could go and actually have a look around, and some people got to play on the machines. I know Steve did. I know Garvin at Mostly Diggers did exactly the same. In fact, Garvin, you won't be able to see him, but he's actually on behind the controls of one of the machines I'm about to show you. So I filmed this. Now, I was planning to do this via WhatsApp, but the Wi-Fi connection that I was struggling with in Germany just wouldn't allow it. So I'm going to show you now exactly what I got up to basically the day before everything kicked off for Bauma. Okay, it's the first day of Bauma, but I'm not actually at the show. Well, not yet anyway. I'm actually at the Liebherr Proving Ground, about a mile away. I'm going to give you a look around. Take a look at this. Yeah, that was their proving ground. I'm going to go back to this because Steve says, I heard nearly 3,000 employees working on the Liebherr stand. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there were, one of the things that struck me, we were picked up from the airport in a Mercedes people carrier of some description. I can't actually remember what the model number was, and it had the Liebherr logo on the side, and they've got a slogan, "Hands on the future" or something. I think it was called. And we got in one, and then there was another one behind us, and there was another one behind that. When we went out the final or the first day, we had to get a taxi to go pick up the car, and those Liebherr vehicles outnumbered the local taxis. There were, and this is not me just plucking a figure out of the air. There were hundreds. Now, my assumption is they probably hired them and just badged them and hired them locally and badged them. But there were hundreds, hundreds. Unbelievable, honestly. Steve says you'll see the footage soon from Fred and myself operating these. You will indeed. Will the manufacturers represented at Bauma be able to put on a similar show next time post tariffs? Tariffs were a major talking point at the show, I have to say, and I did write about it. If you'd care to go and have a look at my Substack, demolitioninsider.substack.com, or have a look on LinkedIn, you'll be able to see it. There was a lot of talk about tariffs, and one of the things that struck me in advance of modern exhibitions like a Bauma or an Intermat or a ConExpo, a lot of the people that are on the stands are actually given media training and training on how to handle questions and how to handle the public and that kind of thing. So if you went on a stand and you found somebody stood by a wheel loader, ask about the wheel loader. Yes, so the important things is this, and they had all of that down. But I went on the stand of, let me think, Liebherr, Hitachi, Bobcat, Wacker, Kubota, Devellon, Hyundai, Komatsu, all of those stands, and every single time, tariffs, and every single person in different ways and with different accents all went, don't know. Don't know. And there was one person, actually, I spoke to a guy on the Bobcat stand and asked him the same question, and he was American. And I said, how does this all pan out? And he said, I can't give you an answer because whatever I say now is likely to change when Donald Trump gets out of bed. That so as it stands at the moment, I mean, I don't think the threat of tariffs and trade wars had a negative impact on Bauma at all, not at all. The sun shone. There were deals being done, record numbers of people through the door. Everything was right with the world. Where I do have a question mark, and it's still a year away or 11 months away. My biggest question mark will be for ConExpo. Because if Mr. Trump and his cohorts are still imposing or planning to impose such hefty tariffs on, for example, the Chinese, is it worth Sunward, Sany, XCMG? Is it worth them going? Shantway is another one. What about the Europeans? Now, I realize that some of the Europeans have manufacturing facilities in the US, so maybe they can bypass that. But it has to put a question mark against ConExpo. Really does. Dan Collins says, "Oh, wow, that is a cool setup." Yeah, I mean, what was there, Steve? 50 machines? 60? Just on the proving ground, just so that people could go and have a bit of a play. No way, 3,000. That's madness. It is madness, but it works. In the UK, you may get 10. Yeah, think about it. Listen. There were more than 600,000 people went through the door of Bauma. And if you think, what is Plantworks? 20,000? I know Hillhead's about 20,000. Let's say Plantworks is 20,000. So this was 30 times the size in terms of audience and everything else. But when you think about what a Plantworks will be, 4, 5 machines in a field. My understanding is there's not even going to be any digging this time around. I may have that wrong. I was told that on the QT, and then compare that to what we've just seen. Steve says it was like VIP treatment when you get escorted out of the showground into a black Liebherr minibus. Yeah, it was. Listen, I have to say this. We were very well looked after by the phone folks at Liebherr. They flew us out there. They put us in a hotel for the first night, wined us and dined us. And they did a fantastic job. But that was everyone. We walked onto the Kubota, not the Kubota, the Komatsu stand. PC7000, which you'll see at some point. PC7000, very restricted, and it had to do a demonstration every hour or so. One in German, then one in English, and one in German, one in English. Can we go up it? Yeah, not a problem. In fact, me and my son Fred and Steve all went up it together. And while we were up it, the guys from Awesome Earth Movers were up there as well. Not a problem. Nothing is too much. Nothing is too much trouble at Bauma. And yet here, think about the Hillhead demonstration area where the machines are. There are actually 2 fences to keep you out of it. Yeah. Go back to the mystery machine. Let's have a look. What have we got here? We've got Chris Ford reckons it could be a Schaefer 2630 SLT. It is not. And it's also not a Yanmar mini loader. I can tell you, well, let me show you a bit more. There you are. There's a little bit more canopy for you to go at. Steve says, and you'll see it again at ConExpo, buzzing already. Yes, I can exclusively announce. I mean, I'm sure they've already announced it, but Ed and Steve are returning to Las Vegas. Little like Frank Sinatra back in the day. They're doing their comeback tour of ConExpo next year. Is it March? Is it March next year? I think it is. So if you are planning to make the trip to Vegas, make sure you go to the Kinsoffer stand. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. Steve says the tour we got at Komatsu was like speed dating. I've never moved so fast. I am going to very quickly recount the tale. I got I think I got a message from Steve to say we'd got an invite to go up the Liebherr 9400 because he'd been speaking to one of the guys on the Liebherr stand. So Fred, Steve, and Ed all went up the Liebherr, had a bit of a play, honked the horn, frightened the bejesus out of everybody, and then we all went back to work. I don't know, 2 hours later, exactly the same thing again, only this time I got the phone call and I got on the phone to Steve and to Fred and said, we need to be at the Komatsu stand now, right this second, right this very minute. All 3 of us ran from various different directions, converged on the stand. PC 7000 guided tour, absolutely. But it was literally a case of up. Isn't this fantastic? My God, look at the view. Right, time to move on. Get back to the day job. it was, as Steve said, like speed dating, never moved so fast. Yeah, but well worth it. I do. When I get to my morning monologue today, I will be telling you about the various memories of all things related to Bauma. We'll be right back with some hydrogen Hyundai after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Now, I don't want to give the game away because I do talk about this quite a bit in my morning monologue. I was expecting, bearing in mind, Bauma 2022, there was lots of talk about hydrogen. Hydrogen was the future. Hydrogen is going to be the next big thing. It didn't really feel like it had moved much. I think Liebherr had one hydrogen machine on their stand in 2022. I think they had 3 this time. There were a few more about, but none that you could point out and think that's ready right now. You know, we've got the infrastructure, we've got the machine. Hadn't moved forward very much. And as further evidence of that, Ben, the operator, Ben Wade, a Brit, he's been on this show in the past. He was charged with operating and demonstrating the hydrogen Hyundai excavator on their stand. But he started the week with 7 hours worth of hydrogen, and I'm sure this was purely a Bauma restriction, but they forbade Hyundai from refueling. There was a big refueling tank there, a big hydrogen tank. I don't know if it had anything in it, but Bauma refused them permission to recharge it or to refuel it. So as a result of that, the machine basically did a couple of minutes. Look, it can move. It is real. It does exist. It's a kosher thing, and then had to stop. And in many ways, and this is not a criticism of Hyundai, in many ways, I think that was indicative of the state of play with hydrogen machines. It's still a promise, but it's an unfulfilled promise. All that being said, I am going to show you the Hyundai machine, because even when it was only just moving, it is pretty smart.
The eco-friendly energy source that generates 0 carbon emissions. Hydrogen. Charting a sustainable path for future generations. HD Hyundai Construction Equipment's hydrogen-powered excavator, paired with Hyundai Motors' mobile hydrogen refueling station, sets a new standard in green innovation. Hydrogen-powered excavators use fuel cells to convert hydrogen and oxygen into clean electric energy, which efficiently powers the motor and hydraulic systems. The only byproduct of this process is pure water. Driving industry-first innovations, we are pioneering the integration of metal hydride technology. This solution doubles hydrogen storage density at lower pressures, enhancing safety and cost efficiency, while also serving as a counterweight, enhancing space and operational efficiency. We aim to accelerate the adoption of hydrogen-powered construction equipment by introducing innovative mobile refueling solutions capable of storing 50 kilograms of hydrogen, refueling up to 4 excavators simultaneously, and reducing costs by eliminating the need for additional compression equipment. HD Hyundai Construction Equipment's hydrogen excavators match the performance of diesel machines, operating up to 12 hours on a single tank with exceptional efficiency and reliability. Committed to innovation, HD Hyundai Construction Equipment is dedicated to fostering a sustainable, eco-friendly society for future generations, building a comfortable tomorrow.
Lots to cover. Lots to cover. I know Dan Cullen is only listening now, but we'll do our best to keep you informed, Dan. Gary says, one of the outstanding innovations from the show was the Gel skid steer with a folding glass door that featured on Diggers and Dozers channel on Instagram and on TikTok. On TikTok, rather. I think that's got about 1.5 million views now. And it was very smart. Up and over. Very, very smart. 1.5 million people agree. So Steve says, do you know about the hydrogen situation at Bauma? I was aware. And he says this, there was no safety procedure for refilling hydrogen. Again, I would say that is indicative. And bearing in mind all that I said at the top of the show about people being allowed on machines and beer flowing, not in an unpleasant way. And please let me reiterate, Bauma, I've never felt safer. But there is beer on tap there. And it all seems to work. No safety procedure. Does that mean that when hydrogen becomes a reality, we are going to have specific hydrogen safety procedures on site? There's the first question. And Steve also says, I wasn't a fan of the looks. Huge for the size of it. Yeah. Now, therein lies another issue. You can always tell a hydrogen machine because it has a hump on its back. They are the Quasimodos of the construction equipment world. Regardless of what type of machine it is, there is a hump on their back. Think back a few years when we first started to really concern ourselves with the aesthetics of machines. Remember, we used to have sort of sloping bodies for increased visibility. Now, I realize that we now have all-round cameras or reversing cameras, which has kind of eliminated that need. But the view out the back of a hydrogen machine must be obscured because there is that lump on the back. There is that lump on the back. Jim Turner says demonstration areas at Hillhead have gone downhill. It's more of a photo opportunity, not a demonstration. I can't see the owners of Newark Showground wanting anything dug up. There's cables and water pipes running all over the showground, but there's also an airfield next door that is one of the car parks. So if they use their noggins, they could be stockpiling muck rubble for crushing and screening when the show is on. I guess that's possible. I guess that is possible. But as I say, I was told, and I will reiterate, I got this second-hand or possibly even third-hand, no digging at plant works. And bearing in mind, I do come from the SED school. That was how I cut my teeth on all of this. And SED, site equipment demonstration. Plant works was supposed to be the successor to SED. It was supposed to be a demonstration. And if it is just a bunch of machines parked in a field, and also, let's forget, it is going to be in a Bauma year. Even those of you that weren't lucky enough to go to Bauma, by the time plant works rolls around, you will have seen pretty much everything there was at Bauma. I'll leave it to you to decide whether you take the opportunity to attend. Chris Ford, going back to the Mystery Machine, reckons it could be a Schaefer 9660. It's not. There's a little bit more, just to prove you that that's not the case. Gary Muirhead says, my friend, excuse me, my friend who came back to work from being at Bauma has said, massive focus on electric and hydrogen equipment, not many diesel engines on display. Wasn't much in the way of diesel engines, but there was lots of diesel machines. However, the Lugong stand was mostly electric. There was a big portion of the Liebherr stand was electric. Volvo was entirely electric. So there was an awful lot of electric, but the hydrogen, it was one or two machines here and there. I explain it more when I get to the morning monologue, but if you think about the passage of time from 2022, when hydrogen really first made its entrance, this is going to be the thing of the future. So I arrived 2025, 3 years later, expecting to have seen a marked change. Not really. Much more in terms of autonomy and remote control, which again I'll come to in a moment. Dan says, "Love the Germans, like the Irish, love the beer." But yeah, with Steve, those Hyundais look an awful thing. Was JCB missed not being at the show? Missed by me, I would say. As a Brit who likes to see Brits doing well, yes, I would like to have seen JCB there. Do they miss out? JCB have got very, very good at taking people to them. They bring the mountain to Mohammed rather than taking Mohammed to the mountain. So, I mean, in absolute truth, I'd say exactly the same about Volvo. Volvo are very, very good at organising trips up to Eskilstuna, so people can see an undiluted vision of Volvo. Trips up to Uttoxeter, unfiltered access to JCB. I think all of that makes absolute sense. But as one of the biggest brands in the world, not being at Bauma, I would like to have seen them there. I fully understand why they weren't. It's phenomenally expensive, and requires such a huge commitment in terms of the people being there and getting the equipment there. I understand all of that, but as one of the major brands, and bearing in mind some of the stayaways from last time around, Volvo being one, Case being another, they were back, and yes, JCB not, which I would like to have seen. Steve says, for me, JCB wasn't missed. There was a few. Yeah, there were a few. Nick says, hydrogen doesn't impose major new risks compared to other gases. That's good to hear. Yeah, Steve is off to Volvo in, what is it now? It's April, right? 2 months. 2 months. He'll be off up to Eskilstuna, and he's going to have a fine old time. Can you see this hat, by the way? I think there's a Bauma logo on that. Bit of an exclusive for that. Jim Turner says, I'm up for going to plant works. Video machines and machinery doesn't do them enough justice. Nothing like seeing them in the flesh and having the crack about products. That's one thing you can't lose. Having the crack, discussing it. But I came away from, a lot of my memories of Bauma will be about machines that were actually moving. Seeing something like that 9400 actually going through its paces. The Ed and Steve show, the Wacker Neuson show, the autonomous machine on the Hitachi stand, the PC 7000, reaching out towards the crowd. All of that relates to machine movement. It's not the same as a machine just parked. And yes, you will still get the crack. Yes, you will get to give it a bit of a kick, and kick the tires and kick the tracks. But did you ever find out why XCMG cancelled your meeting? No. As it turns out, I was not alone though. Apparently, I can only assume. Just to answer this, Dan says, was JCB ever at Bauma? Yes, they were. 6 years ago, 9 years ago, they were definitely there. I can only assume that XCMG were getting close to Bauma and realised that they weren't going to be seeing much in the way of press or content creators. And I think they probably put an agency on to getting people, because I got a bit of a last minute invitation. We'll fly you there. We'll pay for your accommodation. By that time, all of that was already done. So I went back and said, well, I don't need any of that. But if you want to cross my palm with silver, I'll come and cover your stand. They didn't. Turns out they'd done that to 4 or 5 different people that I bumped into during the show. None of them heard an answer either. So I don't know quite what their game was. And this wasn't because they weren't paying me. I didn't even stumble across the XCMG stand. I know they were there. I just had so much else going on. Didn't get to see them. Anyway, enough of me babbling on. What else have we got? Oh yeah, we've just been talking about Volvo, haven't we? And all things electric. About time we had a look. Back after that.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Oh, what's going on here? Let's have a look. No, that's not the answer I'm looking for. There we are. Jim says, even if I've been to Bauma, I'd still go to Plant Works too. There's always different things to see. Admittedly, I do come at shows from a very different perspective. I'm going to see that which is new, because that's what my job entails. I'm trying to find the new and the unusual and the exciting and the interesting. If you're just a plant enthusiast, which quite clearly Jim is, absolutely. And I'm not decrying Plant Works, but when I think back to all that made Bauma as good as it was, not just the scale, but the interactivity, the ability to actually get up close and personal with some of the machines, and just, I think that will be less. Gary Muir says, has Peter and Lucas made it home yet? I loved the videos of the road trip and all the road projects they passed on the way. I saw Lucas. I was going up an escalator. He was going down it. Didn't see Peter at all. I saw Nick Drew for about 30 seconds on the Komatsu stand. Saw Chris and Dale from Awesome Earth Movers at various stages of the show. Saw Ash from Awesome Earth Movers as well. But the show is that big. You could. I mean, Lou Carney was there. Didn't see her. As I say, Peter was there. Didn't see him. Lots of other people that I didn't get to see because it's just too big. Too big. Yes, Volvo. They, as you know, they made a very bold decision to go entirely electric at Bauma. They did show off a brand new ADT, an electric ADT, which I do have footage of, not for today. I've got that coming up in a day or two's time. But here is, Volvo's electric mission. I have to say their stand looked awesome. I will be showing you around that at some point. Gary Muirhead has just said, I'm going to start saving up for the next Bauma show. I think I've got an old whiskey bottle from the pub that I'll start popping some change in. I can tell you now, we stayed, we got really lucky. And this is nothing to do with me. I'm going to hold Fred entirely responsible for this. We stayed with Liebherr the first night, but then we were in an Airbnb, and you never know, do you? You're never entirely sure what you're getting with an Airbnb, and particularly when you don't know the local geography. But Fred had booked an Airbnb. It was a flat above a burger bar. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. You know, had all mod cons and everything else, places to sleep, places to work, and so on down the line. Turns out it was about a 7-mile journey, almost completely straight line from our front door to the front door of Bauma. And that place cost us 50 quid each a night. Now, okay, 100 quid a night, not exactly cheap, but if you're doing it, a couple of you up, you know, if you're going to do it as a road trip, you know, 100 quid each, it's not that bad. Or 100 quid for a night, not that bad. And you can get flights, you book them early enough, you can get flights there, 80, 90, 100 quid. You know, you could do it. Food, not particularly expensive. He's at the show, not around the corner. So yeah, you can do it pretty economically, and I would highly recommend that you do. We've got something new coming up for you next. Obviously, we did have our mission to Munich. Well, the mission to Munich is over, so we're now doing some stand tours after this. Yeah, Gary's just said, I love the rear father and son photo of yourself and Fred. Fantastic pictures. Looked like you were absolutely enjoying yourself. Yeah, well, I mean, by the time I took that photograph, the pressure was off. The pressure was off by then. So we'd done everything we needed to do, and we basically jumped on a train, headed off into Munich centre, went to the Hofbrauhaus, bought a bit of lunch, quick beer, stroll around the town centre, then back on the train, back to pick up the car, drop the car off, come home. All good. Jim says there's lots of interest in small companies that have products I'm interested in, so I can see the appeal of all the shows. Mostly it's the small innovative companies that I find most interesting because the products haven't been highly publicized. Jim, you're absolutely on the money, and that's funny enough. I met up with the organizers of the Somoto show over in Italy, and met up with them on the final day of the show, and that's the appeal of the Somoto show. There's an awful lot of equipment on display there that is made in Italy, basically for Italy. That yes, you know, if at a push, you could probably get your hands on it here. Some of them have dealers, but by and large, they're just building for a domestic market. And some of the stuff you see there, you will not see it anywhere else. And I think all of the shows have got that. You know, there are a few bits and pieces kicking around at Bauma. So I've never seen one of those before. Speaking of which, Mystery Machine. Let me add that to the stage. There you are. There's a little bit more. Did you manage to put a Perry bag from this year? I didn't. No, I didn't. What I did get, hang on a minute, let me put me on full screen so you can see it. Take that away and take that away. I did get a Liebherr bag, if that helps. Small mystery. I'm not a mystery machine. I'd like your input on something. So in the goodie bag, in addition to the very fine hat that I got from Liebherr, I'm opening it now. Bear with me. Just talk amongst yourselves because I'm looking for some advice. Okay. I didn't realise it was this well wrapped. Bear with me for a second. I'm just doing this while So you see this, right? Okay. So it's a Liebherr lunchbox. Okay. I'm sure you can see that, and it's metal and it's got the clasps on top, and you undo those. You can takes the lid off. Okay, so there's the lid, and then inside is this. And I'm doing this because we've already opened Fred's. And does anyone have any idea what that is? It goes with this. It doesn't fit that way. it does fit that way, but it rattles up. As you can see, it rattles. Any idea what that is? If anybody's got any clues what that is or what purpose it serves, I'd love to hear from you, because I've opened it. I quite like the idea of the lunchbox. Not that I travelled far enough to have a lunchbox, but I quite like the idea of owning one. Be good for fishing. But there you are. Carry on that. It would be handy for your fishing tackle. Yes, it would. It would. But I just don't know what that little piece of metal does. If anyone's got any clues on that, I genuinely no idea. And there are no instructions before anybody asks. Yes, now I've promised you guided tours. I'm doing these literally as they come off the camera. No great editing. They're not in any particular order. But this first one I'm going to show you is basically for Dan Cohen. Dan mentioned the fact on WhatsApp. He mentioned the fact that Kubota had produced their 1 millionth mini excavator. Not only had they done that, they actually had that 1 millionth machine at Bauma. So we're going to take a guided tour of the Kubota stand in just a moment. But then after that, as a bit of a bonus, and this one is for Gary Muirhead, we're going to do a very quick guided tour of the Steelwrist stand. So first up, Kubota. This is the Breakfast Show at Bauma, and we're now at the Kubota stand. That's the Pitbull stand behind us. We're not going to look at that. We're going to look at Kubota instead. And I bought this hat especially for this. Orange machines, orange hat. Let's go and take a look. I'm sure I've probably told you in the past, handled the PR for Kubota UK, so have a real affinity for this brand of machines. And I can see lurking in the distance, they've actually got a prototype machine. Let's go and take a closer look at that. Bit of rotor tilt action going on first of all, but here is the prototype, as you can see written across the back of the machine there. Obviously attracting quite a bit of interest. It is the KX042-5. Go the long way around so you get a proper feel for it. There you are. I'd like to hazard a guess that the two guys looking at that are Italian, judging by the way they're dressed, but we won't get into that. And then over here, when you produce 1 million excavators, it's customary to celebrate, which is exactly what Kubota have done. There you are. Go around the back here, you can see 1 million excavators. What an accomplishment. The irony is, when I was working for Kubota back in the late 80s, early 90s, they were being sold in their hundreds in the UK, and now they've amassed 1 million. 1 million excavators sold. That's an awful lot of nuts and bolts, whatever way you cut it. And here is the celebration machine from the front with the stand in the background. Go over to the skid steers, the SVL 75-3, and then work our way through. Compact wheel loaders, not overly popular in the UK, but smart looking machines nonetheless. And there's one hell of a paint job coming up. Take a look at this. I love the fact that the companies, when they go to an electric brand or they go to an electric power source, they always tweak the way that the machine looks. I wish there was a few more machines that looked as good as that. And there's another one over here which we can get even closer to. Go past the electric power unit that they're displaying there, right over to here to the U274E, all electric. That is quite a paint job. And there's some of the larger excavators from Kubota. That right there is a KWO95. And if you look in the background, there's another prototype over here. If I can get my way through. A U145 that looks like that. I'll take a very quick spin around that. Really busy stand, this one, so I'm having to avoid the crowds. But the U145. And that concludes our look around the Kubota stand. Now, Dan has just said, where is he? See, they introduced a 14-tonner too. I think that may have been it. What I couldn't figure out, and I did try to ask, but language barrier being what it is, just before I left for Munich, it was announced that Liebherr and Kubota had signed like a joint venture whereby Kubota were going to be badging some of the smaller excavators from Liebherr as Kubotas. I think that may have been one of them, but I don't know. My memory said that they were wheeled excavators. They were actually badging, but I may have got that completely wrong. So, Gary Muirhead says, "Did you see the Marco Lorena machine that was on display?" I did not. What I did see, though, was an awful lot of K-Tech machines. I'll tell you more about that when we get to that. But with that one was for Dan. Dan was interested in the millionth Kubota machine, and now this one is for Gary. This is the Breakfast show at Bauma. We don't normally do requests, but this one is specifically for our friend Gary Muirhead. We're going to take a look around the Steelwrist stand. If you look to my left here, there's three guys speaking. The one furthest away is actually Stefan Stockhouse, one of the founders of Steelwrist. I'm not going to disturb him because it looks like he's deep in discussion. I'm going to take a look around. There's the stand, and then work our way through more products. They've got a demonstration area here, obviously. And it's that popular, they've even created a grandstand for it. And then through here, just a few more bits and pieces from Steelwrist. As I say, this one is very much for Gary Muirhead. Gary, enjoy. Take a quick spin back round, just so that Gary gets the full flavour. There we are, it's Steelwrist. It was very sunny there. One of the hardest things was actually keeping my shadow and the shadow of the phone out of, on the selfie stick as well, out of the pictures. But there you are. That's the look around. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like into my Bauma-themed morning monologue. If you can't stick around, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Hope to see you again very soon. I'll be back tomorrow. By the way, it's a 4-day week this week. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's Good Friday this week, and then it's Easter Monday next week. So it's 4 shows this week, 4 shows next week. Just thought I'd remind you of that. Don't be here on Friday. Well, you can be. Just don't expect to see me because I'm going to put my feet up because I didn't get a day off this week, and I think I deserve one. Anyway, if you have the inclination and the time, please join me after this for my morning monologue. There is a thing, it's a look or a facial expression that marks Bauma as utterly unique in the pantheon of equipment exhibitions. It's a similar look that you see on faces of exhibitors on the last day of other such shows, a look of blessed relief that says, "We made it through." At Bauma, there's still an expression of relief, but it looks different, and you see it on the faces of exhibitors on the opening day of the show. And it's an expression that says, at long last, we finally get to share everything we've been working on secretly for the past 3 years. Bauma is a mountain. It's not an event you attend or a place you visit. It's a thing you conquer. Rising to the challenge of Bauma requires grit, resilience, and endurance. But when you've scaled the peak, the view is amazing. The feeling is euphoric, and you'll have memories that will last you a lifetime. 10 times I've visited Bauma, and 10 times it's defeated me. I've always returned with regrets. Regret that the show didn't last just a little bit longer. Regrets at the things I should have seen but didn't. Regrets at the people I planned to meet but couldn't. But not this time. This time I arrived in Munich with a very long and very detailed list of tasks. And now, as I sit in the Munich apartment that's been my home for the past week, my suitcase packed and waiting by the door, my list of tasks is a sea of ticks. Every machine I wanted to see, every person I wanted to meet, every stand I wanted to visit, done. Of course, I'm not kidding myself. I'm sure there were dozens of hidden gems that I didn't stumble upon. Maybe there were enlightening conversations to be had while I was otherwise engaged. But I will return from the Messermunchen safe in the knowledge that I gave it my all. And trust me, the equipment manufacturers did likewise. Bobcat, Hitachi, Kobelco, Komatsu, Liebherr, Volvo, Wackenhuysen, and all the others brought their A game. Their engineers made possible the impossible, producing equipment not of today, but of years to come. There will be a time when there are hundreds of the new Komatsu PC220s on sites around the world, when a Kobelco SK300 straight boom demolition machine goes to work, when an autonomous Liebherr wheel loader eliminates the strain of repetitive and tedious work, and when the Hitachi Landcross One evolves from stunning concept into a fully fledged machine. When that time comes, we happy few, will look back and remember when and where we saw it first. The show wasn't without its disappointments, of course. At Bauma 2022, we were afforded a glimpse of a hydrogen-fueled future. 3 years later, hydrogen remains tantalizingly out of reach, while the electric revolution continues to gather pace. But if a hydrogen future remains just beyond our grasp, Bauma 2025 proved that machine autonomy is right here, right now. And it's arriving in a quiet, subtle way, not as a human replacement, but as a human aid. Liebherr's autonomous wheel loader doesn't actually require an operator, but the seat and the cab remain because there are some tasks and some applications that still require that human touch. Komatsu's PC220 has an autonomy feature that allows it to replicate movements and actions taught by the person behind the levers. Meanwhile, Hitachi's autonomous excavator is perfectly capable of digging a trench to a precise length and depth, but it still requires a human with an iPad and an understanding of construction to tell it to do so. Any suggestion that the days of human operator are numbered are at best premature and at worst a long way wide of the mark, at least for now. Along with autonomy, there was another word on the lips of exhibitors and visitors alike: tariffs. But even the presence of an ominous orange cloud couldn't dampen spirits. This was an upbeat Bauma, a momentous Bauma, a Bauma that will live long in the memory of those lucky enough to be there. Deals were being struck, business was being done, and while trade wars might have been raging elsewhere, Bauma was a time and a place where the construction equipment world came together, united. As I said at the outset, Bauma is a mountain, and each time I've attempted to scale it previously, it's taken something from me. It's hurt my feet, addled my brain, and broken my spirit. But not this time. This time I've returned intact, and in fact, I've brought back just a little bit of Bauma with me. I've brought back memories of experiences that very few people will ever have the privilege of enjoying. I've been aboard a massive Komatsu mining shovel. I've seen the dawning of a new equipment era with Hitachi's Landcross One concept machine. I've seen machines from Craic, Kobelco, Devellon, and Liebherr that will change the face of the demolition industry in the months and years to come. I've met people that I previously knew only by name or by reputation, and people that knew me purely as that guy on the internet. And like the hundreds of thousands of others that visited Bauma, I've borne witness to man's ingenuity and innovation, and to the constant pursuit of bigger, better, safer, more. And best of all, I got to experience all of that and so much more with my son. I fully intend to be there again in 2028, but for now, auf Wiedersehen, Bauma, und danke. There you are. That's my Bauma memories right there for you. And I just so you know, I did actually write that while I was sat in an apartment in darkest Munich. So there you are. Gary says, "Did you manage to get the drone up?" If you watch the the transition between me introducing Steelwrist stand and the Kubota stand, there's a bit of drone footage in there. We were told. Do I go public with this? I guess I probably can. What are they going to do? Send somebody over to get me? I don't know. We weren't told we couldn't fly a drone. To be clear, we're not making the rules up as we're going along. Nobody said you can't fly a drone, but there were whispers that it was considered poor form and so on down. So we went in very early. We were on site about 7 o'clock one day and got the drone up for an hour or so. Just did various bits and pieces. But having done so, and I've got to be honest, we did it under not under the cover of darkness, but we certainly tucked ourselves away. We took off from the Hitachi stand, and a couple of hours later, we heard that somebody had tried to fly a drone and they'd been ejected from the site. Now, my assumption with that is that they were trying to do that while there were thousands and thousands of people. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have even suggested putting a drone up in the air when there's people down below. But we were there before the people arrived, so we managed to get some drone footage. As I say, we've used it in the transition. We've actually done some films with the likes of Hitachi, Komatsu, and Manitou, and Bobcat and Wacker. We've got some aerial footage of all of that, so well worthwhile, but risky. And Bauma, if you're watching this, and we shouldn't have done that, sorry. What more can I say? Oh, something's going on. Oh yes, that's my watch telling me that the thing that I've just read to you has just been published. It's all clever stuff, isn't it? So yes, we'll be back tomorrow. Unless you want to discuss that all a bit more. I did, and I'm looking forward to showing you because there's a really good blooper in it. Bobcat very kindly set aside a room on their stand upstairs and to the left for influencers. Don't consider myself to be one of those, but more than happy to use their facilities. And I popped up there one afternoon. I think it was our last day at the show. Excuse me. Basically, just to talk into the camera about my thoughts, what was the best demonstration, what was the best machine, and so on down the line, which I did. And I'll be playing that to you at some point in the not too distant future. But while I was filming it, the guy that handles the PR for Bobcat and for development, actually, a guy called Mike Isherwood, and Mike actually offered me a job about 35 years ago. I've known him forever, but he actually walked in behind me, stood in the doorway, fully framed in the video, and realised what was going on and walked back out again. I'll get you to look out for him. Mystery machine. Lol. Yeah, good point. I didn't reveal the mystery machine. Well, nobody got it, so I'm going to claim this as a victory for me. Let me put it up on the screen for you. There you are. It is, in fact, that right there. I need my cards because I can't remember what it is. It is called a Pitbull. It's an X27-26. If you were paying attention, when I did the Kubota walk around, I think I actually said I'm maybe that one, I can't remember, but I am actually stood on the Pitbull stand when I start the film. So there it is. It's a Pitbull. I got the 3 points today. And I will update you very quickly. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen has got two wins, and he shared a win, so he's got 3 wins, and I've got 2. So yeah, I'm second. Dan is currently in first place, even though there were no winners today. So there you are. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning show. We will slowly. We've got lots and lots of stuff to show you. I mean, I would imagine our Bauma coverage is going to last weeks, literally weeks, quite possibly months, as we slowly go through all the bits and pieces. All the stuff that I've shown you that I shot today is real sort of rough and ready, shot on a phone, run and gun, the more sexy stuff that Fred shot will be coming over the coming weeks and months. But the show will be back to normal. There'll be a bit more of an after show chat tomorrow. I think I did a bit too much of a preamble today, which I'll do away with tomorrow. And we will start to well, there you are. We will get to the back to normal. And I can tell you that Dan, you asked a question about Dr. Yvonne Waterman being on the show. I'm working on it. That's all I can tell you. I'm working on it. And Gary Muirhead says, when I can get my mouse to go over to here, Fred is going to be a busy boy. Fred was an incredibly busy boy. I have to say, he did most of the work. He always does the sexy part of the work because he is a much better videographer than me. But everything that you see from the likes of Komatsu and Manitou, which we'll be bringing you in the coming days and weeks, entirely his own work. I wasn't even there. I was off doing something else, probably something utterly without purpose. And Fred was doing that all himself and did an absolutely cracking job. So look out for all of that. But yeah, I've said this before, and I was explaining this to somebody at the show. If you shoot an hour of video, you're looking at something like 3 to 4 hours of editing. Well, if you think we were filming basically from 7:30 in the morning, virtually non-stop until about 5 o'clock in the evening for 6 days, you can imagine how much. I mean, we're talking literally terabytes of film that all needs to be pieced together. It must make you very proud having your son by your side. It does, actually. It's and you know, it took me a while to realize it. And it's not. Pride is one thing. Pride is one thing, particularly when you see, people enjoying his work and people telling you how good he is and everything else. That's one thing. But the one that really struck me is, I mean, bearing in mind that was my 11th Bauma. It's Fred's 4th. So I am a bit slow on the uptake. But some of the things that I've done over the years, for years I did them on my own. Like, for example, I went to the American Rental Association show in 1989, I think it was. And I don't know where it is now, but the American Rental Association show used to be in Anaheim in California, right next to Disney World or Disneyland and Universal Studios. So I did a couple of days at the show and wasn't due to fly back. So I took myself around Universal Studios on my own, which is fine. It was good. I had a good day out. But I'm the only person that saw it. You got nobody to talk to about it. And I've done that for years. Japan, I did it with others, but it wasn't. I was doing it with a family member. All the travel that I've done, I've traditionally done it on my own. Whereas this, we can look back and laugh and marvel at the things that we saw together. And even I don't understand, and I'm equally guilty. It's something I've been doing for years. Traditionally, shows have come to an end on maybe a Friday, and I've always tried to get the first flight out. So as a result of that, I've been around. I've not done all the world. I've done an awful lot of Europe. I've done a tiny little bit of Asia. I've done quite a bit of America. But by and large, I've seen sites, exhibitions, hotels, airports. I've not really experienced much. When you're traveling with somebody else, we were staying in the same apartment, and we were going for dinner together. But Saturday morning, got up. We had hours to kill. Needed to get the car back to the rental place, but we had time to kill. Okay, just jump on the U-Bahn. Couple of stops into Marienplatz, which is Central Square, big cathedral, just around the corner from the Hofbrauhaus. Let's go and do a bit of that. Go and have some sauerkraut and a bratwurst or whatever it might be, and go and enjoy it a little bit. So I've got memories of that now, which I haven't done in years gone by. So yes, proud is part of it, but just bloody delighted to have some company. And I with hindsight, quite why I would finish a show and just run back to the UK, I have no idea. All the things I will have missed over the years. So I'm putting that right. Chris Fall says, once owned a pit bull about 25 years ago. Bloody good crusher. Stayed with X-Tech Sandvik until they lost the plot. Yeah. Listen, I'm a huge fan of the Sandvik brand, but the day that they renamed Rama as Sandvik, it's like renaming Coca-Cola. Why on earth would you do that? And I understand the idea of having a unified brand, but if the brand is already a world leader, why would you change the name? Don't get it. Don't get it at all. Anyway, it's an hour and 12 minutes, people. I already had virtually no voice when I started. I've got even less now. So please, people, go and have a fantastic day. I'll be back tomorrow. I can probably give you a bit of not a preview, but I can tell you very quickly. As I say, I'm gradually piecing together these tours of the show. Let's have a look. Oh, for some reason, my YouTube is playing very silly buggers right now. No, I was going to tell you exactly what we've got coming up, but it doesn't look like I can do that. Oh, maybe I can. Maybe I can. Yeah, I could show you around the Hydromex stand tomorrow, if you fancy. If you're around. Yeah, Hydromex. We'll do Hydromex tomorrow, and there's loads more to show you as well. So if you are around, please join us, and I'll show you a bit of Turkish delight. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic day. Great to be back. There are a few goodies that have come back. I haven't even unpacked the case fully yet. So once I've figured out exactly what it is I've got, I'll work out some way to give it away and hook you up with some Bauma goodies. Till then, everybody, have a great day. All the best.